Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We are here hanging out this morning with PJ. PJ, you know it's a Thursday, which means that Papa Joe and I are here together, and we'll be carrying you through your morning, and it is a blessing, an honor, and a privilege to be able to do that inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. PJ and I are going to start off our conversation today speaking on the college football playoff. Their second rankings of the 2024-25 season are out. So we're going to go over those rankings. We're also going to get into college football week 11, recap our picks, see how we did, and then make our picks for week 12. Hard to believe it's already week 12 in college football. And then we'll jump to the NFL, talk about week 10, and then we will get into our week 11 picks. So with that being said, Mr. PJ, how we doing here, sir?
Good morning, Daniels. Everything's fine. Rocking and rolling.
So let's jump right in. I'm going to put the graphic up here for the college football playoff for everybody to see. I want to thank you all for tuning in all around the country and the world. YouTube.com/wakeupcalldt, Facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. I appreciate you for being here with us where sports meets life. So bringing it up here and taking a look at where things are at in the college football playoff in the rankings that they have here, the selection committee's rankings that came out November 12th at the beginning of this week. They have Oregon still at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Texas at number 3, Penn State at number 4, Indiana at number 5. PJ, I'm going to stop there for a second. 4 of the top 5 in the college football playoff rankings are from the Big Ten. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's pause, shall we say. I think it's phony. I know Indiana's going to lose, probably Penn State one more time too. But when you get into the matchups that they set up, the Big Ten's only got 3 in there. So I don't know how that works out, but I love Oregon. I mean, that's for sure. But I looked at the results this weekend, and I thought first of all, you're going through the poll right there, and I noticed the poll. It's got Boise State at 13, and SMU at 14, and Georgia's at 11, and Boise State's ahead of Georgia. So how do you figure that one?
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is there's a 5+7 rule. And in the 5+7 rule, what that essentially means is that they take the they take the 5 highest ranked conference champions. There are 9 conferences currently because the Pac-12 exists, but they don't have a conference championship this year. So they take of the 9 conferences, they say, okay, let's say Oregon of the Big 12, Texas of the SEC, Boise State of the Mountain West, and then they take SMU of the ACC and of the Big 12 BYU, and those end up being your conference champions, and they're your 5 highest ranked conference champions. Then they will have automatic bids into the college football playoff, and then they take 7 at large. So that means that Boise and only the top 4 get to have a bye. The 5th automatic bid could be anywhere. So this is where it gets confusing. If you're Boise State and they say, okay, you're the number 5 highest ranked conference champion, you don't get the 5 seed. You can get anywhere from the 5 seed to the 12 seed because that 5th spot is not guaranteed to have a bye. Only the top 4 have a bye. So that's where it becomes unfair because you can be Boise State and like Oregon and like these other teams, Texas and whatever, win your conference championship, but you have no rights to playing at home. You have no rights to getting a bye. So, you know, I think that the 5+7, I feel like if you're one of the highest ranked conference champions that gets an automatic bid, I feel like the automatic bid should bring you into the next round, but right now it doesn't. So that's why you're seeing certain teams jump and Boise State jump, because if Boise State is considered to be one of those top 5 highest ranked conference champions, if they win their conference championship, then they're going to put them into the college football playoff as an automatic bid, which is why you would see them essentially jump somebody else. But it doesn't mean that they necessarily will in the ranker, because if they consider Georgia better than Boise State and they let them both in, they would give Boise State an automatic bid, but they would give Georgia a better seed. So that's where it gets confusing, because this whole setup is in the hopes that you get more teams in, but a lot of people are hoping that the conferences that get disrespected are going to have some respect, and that doesn't necessarily happen, because Boise State and SMU, in my opinion, are both worthy of getting in. I mean, I'd rather see SMU and Boise State in the college football playoff than see what they have right now, which would be 4, if not 5 teams from the Big Ten. So, I mean, conference champions are going to help some of this, but Notre Dame is a wild card, because Notre Dame gets opportunities based on history and based on their name. But Notre Dame is 8 right now. Is Notre Dame a better team than Boise State? Are they a better team than SMU? Are they a better team than some of these SEC schools? We'll see. But that's where it all comes in, PJ, where it's still kind of murky in the waters, is the conference champions will help decide 5 of the 12, but the other 7 are left up to the committee. And if the committee wants to take 4 of those 7 and give them to the Big Ten, nobody can stop the committee from doing that.
That's true. And there are 4, in the latest rankings, there are 4 in the Big Ten and 4 in the SEC. I see where you're going with that. But we talk about college football a lot, and frankly, there's only 3 conferences that really matter. It's the SEC, the Big Ten, and the ACC. If those conference champions get in and the also-rans wind up getting an at-large bid, you're still going to wind up with an imbalance. Probably, when it's all said and done, and at the end of this school year, at the end of the football schedule, it's probably still going to be 4 SEC and 4 Big Ten in the championship. So, they can fool with the numbers and the rankings all they want. And I do agree with you on SMU. I think that they're being overlooked here a little bit.
Yeah.
But the rest of these teams, the teams that we're talking about are all legitimate teams. I mean, the 12 that are included in this schedule here, they're all tough. And after watching Ole Miss take care of Georgia this last week, and I'm not sure that anyone wants to see those guys come up. So we can get into the rankings pretty quick here, but the SEC, with Tennessee's an 8-1 record, A&M is at 7-2, Texas is 8-1, Georgia 7-2, Bama 7-2, Ole Miss 8-2. All of those teams, they still stay. If they continue to win, they all could be eligible for this thing. I don't think so, but in the Big Ten, you only got Indy, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. Everyone else doesn't count. The ACC got SMU, 7-2 is who is it? That? And then Miami and Clemson. Clemson 7-2. Clemson could still win their division and sneak into this playoff, and so could Miami. Of course, Miami is already included in there. There's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of pissed off people. But in the end, Daniel, as we talk, there's going to be 4-4 on the big conferences, and everyone else is an also-ran.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I've made the statement, and I've made the case, and I've said it repeatedly that I think that we're heading to a world. And I don't want this to happen, because I don't want to see what it does to college football or to athletics in general. But I feel like we are heading to a world right now where we're going to a place where the SEC and the ACC, or pardon me, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to break away. And if they don't break away, I feel like what keeps them from breaking away is putting them in a scenario where they basically run the show. And that's what this looks like right now. It's playing right into the hand of a prediction that I didn't want to be true, which is, you take the college football playoff, you expand it, but you make it SEC Big Ten. You load the pool with that. Think about it like lottery balls, right? You're essentially putting the SEC and the Big Ten and all these conferences, you're putting their name on lottery balls, but you're giving the Big Ten and the SEC 4 apiece, and you're giving everybody else 1 or none. So it's going to be really hard for them to win the lottery up against the reality of the fact that the SEC has more probability and the Big Ten has more probability. Now, are their teams really good? Yeah, they have really good teams within these conferences, but we're in a place where this setup is set up for the SEC and the Big Ten to run it. And that, to me, is I guess the temporary hold of telling the Big Ten and the SEC, please don't go. Please don't start your own thing. Please don't go do something else. Because if you look at the SEC, their schools run the majority of the college football playoff. If you look at the Big Ten and the SEC together, the SEC has the southern middle of the country. They have the southeast of the country, and they come up to the midpoint of the country in those areas. The Big Ten comes up to the midpoint of the Midwest that touches the SEC circle, and then they go to the Northeast. Well, now that they have 4 West Coast teams, if you look at the Big Ten and the SEC together on a map of the United States, they have coast to coast, north to south, and the only areas they don't have, Idaho, Nevada, the Dakotas, teams that are not vying for FBS Division 1A national championships typically. So they represent the entire country and most of the main college football brands within 2 conferences. So to me, I said years ago the SEC could form its own thing and it would have value. Well, the Big Ten made those moves, I think, to show the SEC, I want to go with you, and this is why I should. So the college football playoff expands, and in their expansion, they say, okay, before you guys go, let's see what this setup looks like. And if this becomes the SEC Big Ten opportunity to win a championship, and you just let a couple other teams in there to try and keep people happy, well, to me, it's a way for the college football playoff to try and keep the SEC and the Big Ten from doing the inevitable, which is go form their own thing, because they represent the majority of the country. And if they grab a few more brands like Clemson, FSU, and Notre Dame, who's going to argue that the Big Ten and the SEC don't represent the national champion if they take those brands away? You'd be leaving the ACC with Miami, potentially, if Miami wasn't to go. But you'd be leaving the ACC with the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the Syracuses and the Pitts. The MAC would be the MAC. The Sun Belt would be the Sun Belt. The Big 12 doesn't have Texas and Oklahoma anymore. And so does the Big 12 really have an identifier from year to year that's a dominant team? BYU's been dominant right now, but is there really an identifier there? So when you look at that and you say the Big 12 is not going to have one, if the ACC loses Clemson and FSU and maybe Miami, they're not going to have one. If Notre Dame finally decides to join the Big 10, well, then that major brand is within one of those 2 conferences. So to me, it's like the SEC and the Big 10 are a few steps away from creating something that is going to more than... To most people in the country, it's going to identify within these 2 conferences the national champion. And then the other FBS conferences are not going to hold the same value. They're not going to hold the same weight. And it's no disrespect to those conferences. It's no disrespect to how I value them. I just feel like the SEC and the Big Ten are a few steps away from completely breaking away from the NCAA and the college football playoff. And I think the college football playoffs pitch to keep them around is to say, listen, we'll give you more spots than anybody else, and we'll let you guys have more of a chance to win a championship every year.
That's true. I mean, what you're saying is true, and we didn't want to see this, but obviously it's heading that way. If you look at the latest brackets, the four bye teams are Miami at 4, Oregon at 1, BYU at 3, and Texas at 2, and Ohio State, even though they're ranked second in the country, has got to play a first-round game against Boise State. Well, that ought to piss Ohio State off, too. So you got Boise State and Ohio State in the first game, 12-5. The next game is Notre Dame at 9 and Tennessee at 8. You got Ole Miss at 11 and Penn State at 6. Then you got Alabama at 10 and Indiana at 7. And those winners play from top to bottom: Miami, Oregon, BYU, and Texas. So, it's going to come out. It's probably going to come out the same. Ohio State's probably going to beat Boise State. But Boise State, in this chart, is only ranked number 12. But in the rankings, they're number 7. Well, that doesn't figure either. But it does because they're undefeated. No, they're not undefeated. BYU is undefeated. But Notre Dame, Tennessee, that's a pick'em game probably. And Ole Miss and Penn State, that'll be a barn burner. And Alabama and Indiana, I don't know if Indiana is going to make it, but they certainly have proved me wrong. They're playing good ball, and some of the results this weekend were staggering. I mean, the Miami game was staggering, and of course, Texas and Florida was a joke. Miami and Georgia Tech was a hell of a game. Clemson, Virginia Tech, Georgia at Ole Miss. I never missed a moment of that game. So I think that Michigan beating Indiana. I want to say Indianapolis. Indiana beating Michigan, I think, is a really good feather in their cap, because the old Michigan probably would have beat Indiana very easily, but not this year because Indiana actually has a good team. But I don't know where they're going to go. I mean, there's more. There's three games left in each conference, maybe more than that. I don't know. And the SEC is always, now with the increased teams, they just wind up beating each other, which they do every year anyway. And it's very possible that Georgia, which is ranked number 11 in the country, could sneak in there if they win the SEC. So there's still a lot to play for, and there's still a lot of talk to be said.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot to be had here. And looking at the bracket myself this morning, that this playoff bracket that you made mention to, the top 4 seeds: Oregon, who projecting that they win the Big Ten, Texas projecting that they win the SEC championship, BYU projecting that they win the Big 12, and Miami projecting that they win the ACC, would be 1, 2, 3, 4 respectively. And then Oregon would play the winner of the 8-9 matchup between Tennessee, who would be an at-large bid, and Notre Dame, who would be an at-large bid, that they would put at number 9, Tennessee at number 8. Texas, the 2 seed, would play the winner of at-large bid Indiana, who would be a 7 seed. Alabama would be a 10 seed playing Indiana. Then we would see the 3-seeded BYU play the winner of 6 seed Penn State, 11 seed Ole Miss, and Miami would play the winner of 5 versus 12, Ohio State and at-large, and Boise State, and this is what I'm saying here, Boise State would be the 5th highest-ranked conference champion, so Boise State would have an automatic bid like Oregon, Texas, BYU, and Miami, but they would be the 12 seed. This is where it gets confusing, and this is where it gets unfair, is you're going to let in one of the non-quote-unquote, I can't stand that they call them this, but the power conferences. You'd be letting in a non-power in Boise State, and you're giving them the final seed. And in order for Boise State to win a national championship, Boise State would have to beat Ohio State on the road, even though they're an automatic bid. Why does an automatic bid play on the road? So this automatic bid would play on the road against Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State, they would have to play on the road at Miami. If they beat Miami, they would have to play, or I shouldn't say on the road at Miami because it would be in a neutral court or neutral field. But you would play on the road at Ohio State. Then you would have to be going up against Miami. Then you'd have to play the winner of whoever makes it out of the Texas BYU side. So Boise State, to me, being a 12 seed, that's where it doesn't make any sense. You say, okay, Dan, the 5 automatic, are they 1 through 5? No, the 5 automatic are 1 through 4, and then 5 can get the 5 seed, the 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10, the 11, or the 12 seed. So they're going to give Boise State as an automatic bid the worst seed, give them the worst road to have to prove themselves, when the other automatic bids get to sit and watch the first round from home. That is where it gets confusing. That is where it gets unfair. That Boise State is going to have the same opportunity on paper as the top 4 seeds of having an automatic bid, but their road is going to be outrageously more difficult, and they will never play a home game. And that's not fair to me to say that Ohio State is Ohio State essentially gets to play the home team. They're an at-large bid, but they get to be, or not play the home team, they get to be the home team. They get to be in front of their fans, and Boise State gets punished by getting an automatic bid. And that would be the same thing for the American. That would be the same thing for the Sun Belt, the same thing for the MAC, the same thing from Conference USA. If it was Liberty, they would get punished. So, I mean, that's the thing that frustrates me, PJ, because the college football playoff expansion was made in the hopes by the quote-unquote non-power conferences that they would have an opportunity to get definitely one in, if not more than one. But even if they get in, their road to get there is the most difficult road that anyone's going to take.
It's true. And the other conferences other than the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and you say the Big 12, is that BYU?
Yeah.
Big 12?
Yeah.
What's the other conference?
Besides, the Boise State would be the Mountain West that they would have as the highest rank, but that means the Sun Belt, the American, Conference USA, the Sun Belt, the American, Conference USA, and the MAC would have no representation at all.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. We've been fussing about this for the longest time, haven't we?
Yeah.
I didn't really put a pencil to it the way you're talking about it now. The teams, the conferences that they want to get involved playing football are not going to get involved with the final decisions because they're not good enough, and that's not right. If you're going to put Boise State in, quite frankly, who's as dangerous as anyone in this crew that we're talking about, they're extremely dangerous with a run attack that guy's going to get over 2,200 yards probably. Boise State's got a good shot to beat Ohio State if they stay on the ground, but never mind that. You're right. The other conferences who were thought about being involved in this are not going to be involved because they're not good enough. Is that right?
Yeah, so essentially they're giving all 9 conferences, and I guess technically Pac-12 isn't dissolved and is going to have a new iteration soon, so they're giving all 10 conferences, if you include the Pac-12, a seat at the table. They're just telling 4 of those conferences to shut the hell up.
Well, money talks and BS walks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know watching some games this week, and I thought were super. The Mississippi, the Ole Miss and Georgia game was just a barn burner. Lane Kiffin they had the TV on him, camera on him all the time. His facial utterances he didn't change.
Yeah.
He had a focused look on. He would talk to guys a word at a time. He would look, and over 3 hours, I mean, his description didn't change at all, except when he had to go back out of the field and tell his people to get back in the stands. That was embarrassing. But the Miami and Georgia Tech, Miami laid an egg there. Miami certainly is a better team. And they just Cristobal just didn't have his boys ready. You just can't go into someone else's yard just because you're Miami number 4 and lay down. You know, they're not going to do that. Notre Dame at FSU, what a joke that was. And Alabama killing LSU. And my Gators against Texas. Daniel, the first series, the second series, the third series, the fourth series, the fifth series, it was 35-0 before Billy Napier had a smile on his face because then he knew the game was over. Yeah. And it wasn't even halftime yet. You got some serious problems at FSU and at Florida. And the way that Bull Gators are talking down here and the war chiefs up there in Tallahassee, that these coaches are still going to keep their jobs for next year. Now, Billy Napier probably will lose the rest of his games. He's got a shot to beat FSU.
Yeah.
I think FSU is playing something playing some cupcake Charleston Southern or something like that. They'll probably win that game. They got a shot at maybe winning Florida. Maybe that's a pick'em game too. But both of the schools down here, Mary T's walking around with a long face all the time. I didn't want to give her the Notre Dame Florida State score. I thought she was going to faint. So she's hanging in there, but she wants to see changes too. So I don't know if I want to see changes or not. All I know is that these kids moving from school to school and the NIL has totally changed the landscape of college football. College football means, to me, you go to school and you play football. Go to school and play football. Now it's not this way. It's you go play football and get your name out there and make money. The hell with school. So where the hell are we going with this? We're not going anywhere with it. All the big schools are going to still be balls to the wall, everything out. They're going to have the best teams. They're going to have more money to spend on their teams, more money to spend on their locations. And the little guys, before this conference brackets were made, were going to be the redheaded stepchild. And even with the brackets, they're still going to be the redheaded stepchild. So nothing has changed except money talks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think we're in a place where, the college football playoff expansion is all well and good, and it's great to see more than 4 teams. It's great to see more than one when we had the BCS. So, and, people saying, well, the computer told us that this is who it had to be, and so this is who it had to be, or whatever. So, I mean, now, as we look at it, I mean, it's a better system. It's still a flawed system. It's still a system that leans heavily toward 2 conferences. It's still, I mean, look at the ACC. The ACC, let's say Miami and SMU play in the ACC championship. Whoever wins the ACC championship, that's the only ACC team that's going to get in. That's insane. That's insane. Because to me, Miami, in my opinion, right now in this moment, and I've told you this repeatedly, PJ, and I said this last week. I said I'm going to pick Miami, but don't be surprised if Georgia Tech wins this game. I have said over and over and over again that I'm not sold on Miami. Miami hasn't played anybody that's really been like, okay, that's a high-ranked team. Miami has played a season, and I critique the Big Ten, and I can't critique the Big Ten and not critique another conference if it's the same story. And in the case of the Penn States and the Ohio States, the conversation about Miami is the same. Who have you played? Who have you beat? So I'm sitting here still to this day, we're in week 12 of college football, and I'm not sold that Miami isn't a pretender. But SMU, to me, SMU is a contender this year. SMU is a team that you don't want to play this year. So that's what I look at. So if SMU plays Miami and Miami wins that game and SMU doesn't get in, now I'm sitting here scratching my head saying to myself, why is SMU not good enough to get in? Well, Dan, they got 2 losses. Okay, well, look around the conferences and look at the teams that you're letting in. Look at the teams that are having the opportunities to get in. I mean, if we look at the rankings right now and we just simply look at the record in college football, we say, okay, the college football playoffs got Oregon's 10-0. All right, but they're going to let in an Alabama team that's got 2 losses, an Ole Miss team that's got 2 losses. A Georgia team can get in that's got 2 losses. So if SMU ends the season 11-2, then what are we saying? We're saying that they shouldn't get in, but we're going to let in these other 2-loss teams. And we're not talking about a bunch of undefeateds or 1 loss. And keep in mind, other teams are going to lose. Somebody's going to have another loss. Because if Oregon and Ohio State play for the Big Ten championship and Ohio State loses, they're going to have 2 losses. Penn State could have 2 losses. Indiana's 10-0 right now, but let's say Indiana, they play in the conference championship with Oregon, and they lose. Now they got a loss. Now is a 10-1 Indiana team not as good as an Ohio State team that's got 1 loss? What if Tennessee, I mean, you look at the SEC, whoever wins the SEC, nobody is undefeated. So whoever wins the SEC, the team that they play that loses is going to have 2 losses. So We could see a Tennessee team with 2 losses. We could see Alabama with 3 losses. We could see Ole Miss with 3 losses, and we could see Georgia with 3. It depends on who goes and plays in that game. So, I mean, at some point within the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about 2 and 3 loss teams getting in over conference champions, over 1 loss teams. And the ACC, I think, should have a big stink here, PJ, that they're going to watch the Big Ten have 3 or 4, the SEC have 3 or 4, and the ACC, they're going to say, well, you got one of the top 4 seeds, so you got to bye. So just be happy with the fact that we're going to let you automatically get through the first round, but we're not going to give you any other schools. I'm not saying that Clemson's having a great year. I'm not saying that, the teams that people think about are having a great year. But when you go and you look at the ACC and you say, you got Miami ranked so high this season, which, again, I don't know if Miami is a contender or a pretender. I feel like they're more of a pretender. But you look at Louisville and what Louisville's done this year. They have 3 losses, so they're out of it. But you look at Clemson is 7-2, 6-1 in the ACC. SMU and Clemson would play for the conference championship right now. If it happened today, SMU and Clemson would play for the conference championship. So you look at Miami and you say, okay, if Miami doesn't play in the conference championship but they don't lose another game, and you take the winner of SMU Clemson and you put them in the college football playoff, you really don't think that you should let in Miami with whoever wins the conference championship in the ACC? I mean, I guess they're hoping that SMU plays Miami so that one of them can knock the other one out. But let's say, for argument's sake, Miami doesn't play in the ACC championship and they end the season 11-1, and then SMU beats Clemson. You don't let them both in? I think Jim Phillips and the ACC should have a huge, huge stink if that happened.
You got the quarterbacks that are sort of setting the trend this year. One of them, of course, is Cam Ward from Miami. And I think that the people making these decisions that we talk about all the time, they look at someone like him, well, he's probably going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate, maybe even win it all, and he's got to carry Miami the whole way. The same thing was said with Cameron Beck of Georgia. Well, he's got a few bumps on the road, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And the best one is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. If no one gets it his way, he's going to lead the nation in passing. Maybe even if he continues doing what he's doing, and beat up on some of the other teams that they're going to play, he'll probably win the Heisman Trophy too. And there's name recognition that goes along here. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, Cameron Beck, Georgia, Cam Ward, Miami. When you think like that, I think the organization here we're talking about, well, Miami is maybe they're not as good as they are, but they got one of the best quarterbacks that we want to see them play. That kind of stuff. And I don't know who I don't know who the quarterback of Clemson or SMU is. I don't know. All I know is that I know that Cam Ward can throw the hell out of the ball. So, it's not an easy situation for anyone. And the way we talk about it is we put it out there and people can make their own decisions. But the decision's coming up here next week, Daniel. We're going to have the same kind of conversation, and this whole bracket's going to be changed again because 1 or 2 teams are going to lose. And then we're going to get to the conference championships. More teams are going to lose. You're correct in saying that a two-loss team could very well slip in here and win the whole thing.
Yeah, and for the record, the quarterback of Clemson, Cade Klubnik, and the quarterback of SMU, Kevin Jennings, this season. So PJ and I are going to take a step aside, and when we come back after our fast break, we will be discussing college football Week 11. How did we do with our picks, and what did we think of the games? There's a bunch of games that PJ alluded to. Miami losing to Georgia Tech, who was ranked earlier on this season. And so them losing that game. How did Ohio State and Oregon look against their teams that are unranked inside of the Big Ten? That Ole Miss game against Georgia that we had circled and we had spoken about what that game could be. And we'll get back to that Texas-Florida game. We'll also discuss Syracuse and how did Syracuse look on the road in their situation that they had. How did Syracuse fare when Syracuse was asked to go on the road and go up against Boston College and what are the glaring issues there. So a lot of things coming up here, and we'll make our picks for Week 12 of college football. That's all coming up after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Stay with us. Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McInerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Bryan and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Bryan and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there's something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allow customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water water machine, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean-to-cup coffee machine. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. And in a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And folks, it's cold up here. It is cold up in Cuse. I will tell you that. I know we got people all around the country and the world that watch and listen to Wake Up Call. It is cold up here. I took my recycle bin had a box on top of it, and the box had fallen off. And I picked up the box, and what fell off the box this morning was ice. Because the the water on the top of the box had frozen. So that's where we're at here in upstate New York. It's cold. It's chilly. That's where we're at. The college football playoffs getting closer and closer. Your boy can't wait to go to Florida because my butt is cold. So I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm happy to have the conversation with PJ. Taking a look at college football playoff week 11, how did our picks do? Well, PJ and I, Ohio State is one of the games that we picked here. Ohio State blew out Purdue 45-0. So we got that one correct. Miami, as we had spoken about before, who was ranked number 4 in the country at the time, lost to Georgia Tech 28-23, so we got that one wrong. Florida up against Texas that PJ was talking about, and we'll get back to in a minute. Texas wins 49-17, so PJ got that one wrong. I got that one right. We both picked Ole Miss over Georgia, so we got that one correct. So that victory there for Ole Miss over Georgia, 28-10. Then we go into that Indiana game. Indiana hands Michigan their 6th loss of the season. I think their 5th, pardon me. So their 5th loss of the season. Michigan 5-5. Indiana 10-0. Indiana wins that game at home over Michigan 20-15. So PJ got that one wrong. I got that one right. And then the Virginia Tech Clemson game, we take a look at how that one went down. Clemson wins 24-14. So PJ got that one right. I got that one wrong. Oregon stays undefeated as one of the only undefeateds left in the country. Oregon wins 39-18 at home over Maryland. So we got that one correct. And then we go in to the SEC, and LSU loses to Alabama 42-13. PJ and I will come back to that one. We both got that wrong. Notre Dame played MT's Florida State's, and Notre Dame going up against FSU wins the game 52-3. PJ and I got that one correct. Sorry, MT. We love you, though. Army goes into their matchup trying to stay undefeated on the season, and they beat North Texas 14-3 in a low-scoring game. So Army is still undefeated. Some of you may not know that because the college football playoff keeps them at the bottom, but they are undefeated. And then Syracuse faced off against Boston College on the road and allowed 313 rushing yards in a defense that struggled to stop the run the entire game. So PJ and I got that one wrong. That means PJ ends the week, let's see, 2-2, 2-3, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4, 5, 6, and 5 goes PJ on the week. So he ends with a winning record. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 4. I will end this week for me. So PJ, you're 6-5. I'm 7-4 for week 11. Let's go back to some of these games. Speak on the lane train and what they did to Georgia. Ole Miss winning the game at home 28-10, handing Georgia yet another loss this season, their 2nd loss of the season. Georgia, after blowing out Clemson in the first week of the season, has lost at Alabama 41-34 and has now lost at Ole Miss 28-10. Just to look at Georgia on the road, on neutral grounds at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the state of Georgia, they beat Clemson. But on the road strictly, they have played just 4 games on the road. They're 2-2 on the road this season. They beat Texas 30-15. They barely beat Kentucky 13-12. And they lost at Alabama and at Ole Miss. So what can you say about the lane train? And then secondly, what do you think about Georgia this season, knowing that they're 2-2 on the road?
Well, that's a loaded question, Daniel.
I know.
It's Jackson Dart, who we've seen play at Ole Miss for 5 years. I mean, he's an NFL quarterback, is what he is. He's that good, and he's got everything going for him. He's got a good offensive line, got a good offensive coordinator, and he's got Lane Kiffin, who somehow gets these guys to play up and above where they're supposed to play. I mean, you're not supposed to push around Georgia the way Ole Miss did. I mean, they pushed her up. I always tell you, the game is won and lost in the line of scrimmage. After the first couple of series, watching who wins the line of scrimmage, I felt right away that Ole Miss was the better team, and they turned out to be that way. Now, Georgia, for all their good things they've done over the years, they've always been regarded as a defensive team, but not so this last Saturday. And Cameron Beck, for all his platitudes, I mean, he's a hell of a quarterback, going to be a first-round pick, I'm sure. He's had 6 interceptions in the last 2 games. Something's not right with him. Kirby Smart says, I'm not making any Scorpions team. Don't even talk to me about quarterback changes. Cameron Beck with Broadwood, he's going to stay with us the whole time. And he's just got to make better decisions, that's all. And I think he's gone from maybe the first or second pick down to a mid-round pick probably because of his play. But he'll do better than that. He's got a big, strong arm, and he's got Kirby Smart behind him. So, you know, it was a tough SEC game. A lot of guys got hurt. It was a fast-moving game, especially when Ole Miss had the ball. Georgia was plodding along, and then they wound up had too many turnovers. And it didn't surprise me that Ole Miss won because of the reputation of their quarterback, because of Lane Kiffin. Now, with everything's been said about Florida, I probably should wait to talk about this, but I'll bring it up now because it involves Lane Kiffin. The AD of Florida says there's a lot of talk going around that Lane Kiffin is going to be the next coach at Florida. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that Billy Napier will be retained and will coach the University of Florida next year. So throw that out there. Now, I'm not sure that's true, but I believe the AD. I mean, he's going out on a limb here. But like you and I talked about at the break, these kids collectively, they run the show. If Billy Napier does not improve his team, they're playing LSU this week. Oh, come on. Then Ole Miss. Come on. And then Florida State. They're 4-5. They're going to be 5-7 by the time the season is over, or maybe even 5-8. And they won't be able to go to a bowl. And the kids that he recruited are going to say, Billy, this isn't for us. I mean, we love you. You're a great guy, great coach, but I got to go someplace where I got to win. And I think that's going to happen. And you're right in saying earlier that if you don't win, these recruits, they're going to pick up and go somewhere else, and they will.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, we go back to the letter that Scott Strickland, the athletics director at the University of Florida, wrote that I read last week, where he said, as we've seen these past several weeks, the young men on this team represent what it means to be a Gator. Their resolve, effort, and execution are evident in their performance and growth each week, building a foundation that promises greater success next season and beyond. UF's commitment to excellence and a championship caliber program is unwavering in these times of change across college athletics. We're dedicated to a disciplined, stable approach that is focused on long-term sustained success for Gator athletes, recruits, and fans. I am confident that Billy will meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. We will work alongside him to support any changes needed to elevate Gator football. And, you know, had said that he's going to continue as the head football coach. But here's the thing. If these players leave, because in this letter, it's like Billy Napier is going to continue as our head football coach. We've seen the young men represent what it means to be a Gator. If those young men leave, if they jump in free agency, the transfer portal, you don't have to wait out a year. You can go wherever you want. You can transfer as many times as you want. It doesn't matter. So in the case of Florida, look at Florida right now. Because here's the thing. If keeping Billy Napier resides on the fact of his relationship with the players and how the players are doing, Florida is 2-4 in the SEC. They're 4-5 overall. You would be crazy to think in this current college football climate with name, image, and likeness, as well as the transfer portal, that he's not going to lose players. So does Scott Strickland, the athletic director of Florida, keep his same opinion about Billy Napier being the head coach next season if Billy Napier loses the players that he's talking about Billy having the relationships with. Because I don't see any worlds where Florida returns with their entire roster from this season, next season, coming off of a season like this, with a record like this, being a non-factor in the SEC. I think there's going to be kids leaving, and if those kids leave, you mention those kids in your letter, and you mention those kids in connection to Billy. If those kids are gone, does Scott Strickland change his decision to keep Billy Napier?
Scott Strickland's going to be leaving too. Florida arguably signed the best defensive lineman last year, McCray, out of Daytona Mainland.
Yeah.
So those two players, McCray and Lagway, are the face of the recruiting of Billy Napier for next year. Now, there's a reason that Florida right now is number 45 in the recruiting rankings right now. The reason is because he's got so many freshmen and sophomores. He's got a lot of kids. And Billy, I hope you can retain those kids because your recruiting class isn't there. So if that's the way he's thinking, if that's the way Scott Strickland's thinking, they got a narrow mind right there because these kids will pick up in a heartbeat. And not only will Lagway and McRae leave, some other guys, the hangers-on will go, and Billy's recruiting class for this year going to wind up in a pooper, and it's in a terrible situation. Now, when you get to talk to Georgia and Ole Miss, but Ole Miss goes right into the transfer portal. He doesn't make any bones about that at all. In Georgia, they recruit really good. It's a whole different situation when you're talking about Georgia, Ole Miss, and Florida.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but if you win, you retain the athletes. If you don't win, the kids are going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's where I sit here and I ask the question of is this Billy's our coach for next season? Is this contingent on if these players stay? Because Scott Strickland's going to come under a lot of fire if he says Billy's our coach, he's leading this young team's fighting, and then a bunch of players on this young team leave. Now you look at Scott and say, okay, well, you said that Billy gets to coach this team of hardworking kids, but now a lot of these hardworking kids are working for other schools. So what do you want him to do now? And so, and it's the SEC. I think whatever the SEC says on Monday can change on Tuesday. The SEC is a terrible place to have a relationship. If the SEC was your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you would be thinking you're going to break up every day. Because on Monday, they love you. On Tuesday, they hate you. On Wednesday, they're dating your best friend. And on Thursday, they call you in the middle of the night. That's the SEC. The SEC is non-committal. They will commit to you as much as you win. But if you don't win enough, if you win but you don't win enough, if you win but then you lose, if you win but you didn't beat this team, the SEC is a very fickle place. And I tell this all the time. If you're a coach and you're at a school and you got a good relationship and you're making money and your family's good and you're good and the SEC calls you, understand something. You got about a 3-year window and they're going to pay you a lot of money. But at the end of the day, do you want to leave the school where you're at that appreciates and respects you to go to a school that's going to be like, hey, you got 2 years, 3 years, probably 3 years. And yes, you make a lot of money and they buy you out in the SEC and there's coaches making money after they retire and there's coaches making money when they go to other places. So if it's about making money and you go to the SEC, fine. But if you want to go to the SEC, just be prepared to not have a job in 3 years because the Nick Sabans are few and far between. Look at Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's been all over the place. He's a coordinator here, he's a coordinator there. He's a head coach here, he's a head coach there. Lane Kiffin didn't have an easy road of I'm in the SEC and I'm going to stay here forever. And if Ole Miss wasn't doing some of the things they were doing now, they'd be talking about is Lane Kiffin going to leave. But Lane Kiffin, and I mean this with respect, is kind of like the cockroach of the SEC. You think that he's gone, but you can't kill him. Because wherever he is today, you're like, okay, well, he's out of the SEC now. He's not working here now as a coordinator. Now he's over at FAU, but then he comes right back in. He's the thing that never dies when it comes to the SEC. You can fire Lane Kiffin, but you can't get rid of him. He can move on to another school, but you can't get rid of him. Lane Kiffin is the coach that I think, whether he wins or loses, always finds a way back to the SEC. But Nick Saban's not there anymore. There's guys that aren't there anymore. And Kalen DeBoer, I mean, listen, he comes from Washington. Alabama's used to winning. I'm sure there's people in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa right now, saying, you know what, Dan? My team is 7-2. You know what, PJ? We're not going to be playing for the SEC championship, so I don't want Kalen DeBoer anymore. That's reality. Kalen DeBoer left Washington, where he was undefeated going into the college football playoff, and he comes to Alabama. But 2 years from now, PJ, is Kalen DeBoer still the head coach of Alabama? I think you and I would argue maybe he's not. So, I mean, that's the SEC. You can leave for more money. Just understand that the relationship is going to be short, but the paycheck is going to be big.
That's true. Now, just think of the teams that are losing right now in the SEC that are going to fire their coaches.
Yeah.
Mark Stoops from Kentucky is not on good ground, and he almost beat Georgia. You got Mississippi State, Arkansas. Both of those coaches are going to lose their jobs. Now, what you're saying is true, and some high-flying coach comes across the country and wants to come into the SEC, I think you better rethink about it. There's a guy out there in Oregon named Lenning who happens to be one of the best coaches in the country. He's only lost a handful of games in 3 years. And they're talking about him, oh, he's a good coach. He's going to go into the NFL and this kind of stuff. Dan Lenning. Dan, if I were you out there, I would stay where you put, because if you want to come over this way, you're going to get your ass beat.
Yeah, you know, and we're looking at these coaches. I'm looking at the potential hot seat here for college football and some of the names that are coming up. And I mean, obviously, Billy Napier is on this list, and we've talked about Billy, but we're looking at Mac Brown at North Carolina. He is, he's 43-31 in 6 seasons, 5-4. I think his record. Let me make sure, because this might not have been updated. So it says his record, and I want to make sure I got it complete here. So his record is 5-4. So he's 2-3 in the ACC right now. North Carolina is in the bottom portion of 17 ACC schools. So they got Mac Brown on this list. They got Ryan Walters of Purdue on this list, 1-7 in this season overall, 5-15 in 2 seasons. Purdue, that's the Purdue head coach. We look at the Big Ten, and they are at the bottom. They're 1-8 now, actually. So 1-8. They're 0-6. They're the only team in the Big Ten that is yet to win a game in the Big Ten this season. Another guy who's on the list, Neil Brown at West Virginia. We look at Dave Aranda at Baylor, because Baylor, now that there is no Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12, the thought was Baylor would maybe be the identifier, and they're not. People are saying Gus Malzahn at UCF. I think that's a joke. And then you look at Sam, because I feel like Gus Malzahn at UCF, I feel like he's got more time. Sam Pittman at Arkansas, they're bringing up here. And there's some other pieces here about Hugh Freeze at Auburn. You remember Hugh Freeze led Liberty to have really strong seasons. Liberty beat 2 ACC schools in 1 season after never beating an ACC school in the history of Liberty's institution. They almost beat 3 that year under Hugh Freeze, and then he ended up going to Auburn. So, I mean, there's guys that are out here. Brent Venables at Oklahoma. People are talking about him. They're talking about Lincoln Riley at USC, ranked so high. Sharon Moore at Michigan, who you've talked about before, PJ, about where can he be. Mike Norvell at Florida State, Billy Napier. Is there any name that I didn't say that you think might be on the hot seat? Do you think that Kalen DeBoer in Tuscaloosa for Alabama, do you think that people are getting a little unsettled down there with him at 7-2? I mean, is there anybody else on that list that you want to talk about?
Oh, not really. You brought up a bunch of names that are all true. Mac Brown, of course, is a Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's he's just maybe a little long in the tooth. Maybe he's not relating to these younger kids as well as he should have. And he certainly didn't recruit that well in North Carolina. I hate to see him go, but I look for him to be leaving. There was the Moore kid from Michigan. He was put in a tough situation when your guy left.
Yeah.
So he's, I'm sure they're not happy with him. There's a good chance that they could be maybe even 6-6 or 5-7 for the year. That's not good either. Kalen DeBoer is not going anywhere because Kalen DeBoer has an airtight contract. Lane Kiffin, I think, is going to stay at Mississippi. I know what he did last year. He recruited the number 2 quarterback in the country last year, a big, tall kid with a left-hand arm. He came in. Dart got hurt during the Georgia game. He came in on a drive, completed 5 or 6 passes, and got a touchdown out of it.
Yeah.
Never came in the game again. And Lane Kiffin was asked about him. He says he's got plenty of time to play next year and the years after. So it doesn't faze the kid at all. But that's the way Lane Kiffin is. He's got a guy in. He wins a lot with him. And then this kid is going to take him. I think if Lane wanted to leave, he wouldn't have brought this kid in. So, and Lane looks like he's going to be tough in the SEC for the years to come. So I'm looking forward to that because I love his persona.
Yeah. I mean, we shall see. PJ has an Ole Miss cup that I gave him for the Lane train. So with that being said, let's jump into our college football Week 12 picks. Now, Week 12 used to tell people that the season was almost over. Folks, college football is so long right now. We got Week 12, we got Week 13, we got Week 14. Week 15 is going to be the conference championships, and then Week 16 is when we see the matchup between Army and Navy being played that week. So we have 16 weeks of college football before we get to bowl games, folks. It's very much like the NFL right now. So there's been games on Tuesday and Wednesday. There's a game tonight, East Carolina at Tulsa. East Carolina let their head coach and a good friend of mine, Mike Houston, go during the season this season. And East Carolina right now going on the road at Tulsa. They are 5-4. And Tulsa this season is 3-6. So kind of crazy to me that yet another, but East Carolina did this years ago. Ruffin McNeil won 8 games. They fired him. They're a bowl team. They fire him. And then you look at, and that's what he had done in recent history. And then you look at East Carolina with Mike Houston, and they're 1 game away from going to a bowl game, and they let him go. So I wonder sometimes what East Carolina is looking for, because it's a tough place to build and sustain a program. And Ruffin McNeil was building something there, and they fired him. And then Mike Houston spent a lot of years, and he was finally starting to turn the corner, in my opinion, and they fired him too. So I don't know what East Carolina's looking for. It makes me sad. They're on the road at Tulsa tonight. So, PJ, let's get into our first game here. One of the teams that has completely fallen out of favor with anything this season is Arizona. Arizona's 3-6. They have a wide receiver on their team that came into this season being a barn burner, and people looking at Tataroa McMillan, he already has over 1,000 yards. He has 1,066. Some have called him the best wide receiver in the entire country. Well, they're unranked, and Arizona's going to play Friday night against Houston. Arizona's going to be at home. PJ, I'm going to tell you this, and you're not going to believe me. If you want, and here's the crazy thing, because Houston is now connected to this more than once this season that we've talked about it, because they were connected to this when Kansas State went to Houston. If you want to go see Houston at Arizona this Friday, November 15th, the tickets to go there cost less than the tickets to see a high school sectional championship in Syracuse this weekend. If you want to see Houston at Arizona, that college ticket costs less than the high school ticket. You can see Houston at Arizona in Arizona this Friday for $2.
And I'm looking at the same chart, and that's awful scary. I don't even care who wins this game, but it looks like Arizona. It's a pick'em game. Arizona's up by 1, so we're going to keep that game, Arizona.
Yeah, we're going to keep it.
I like Arizona at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona at home as well. It just sad to see where this has gone for Arizona this season. Arizona's in their first season in the Big 12, and Houston's in their second season in the Big 12. Neither one of them is ranked. So next up that we have for our picks, we're both going with Arizona in that one, is going to take us to Ohio State on the road at Northwestern. Here's the crazy thing. Ohio State on the road at Northwestern. Northwestern this season has a record of 4-5, but they're hosting Ohio State. The cheapest ticket you can get at Northwestern this Saturday at noon, $249 to go to Wrigley Field in Chicago, Illinois for this matchup. What do you have, PJ? Ohio State at Northwestern.
Those scalpers are going to have a ball with that price, huh?
Yeah.
Ohio State is just too tough. I mean, Northwestern is not in their class.
Yeah, I got to go with Ohio State as well in this matchup. The question becomes, does Ohio State at any point falter here again, or do they play inside? I mean, if they find a way, if Indiana loses, does Ohio State get into the Big Ten championship? And if they have to face Oregon again, who beat them 32-31, do they lose against them again, or do they find a way to beat them? I'm going to go with Ohio State in this game against Northwestern. The next one that we have up, Texas at Arkansas. Any thought that Texas could trip up in this Arkansas game? Tickets in this game only $41, the lowest ticket. What do you got, PJ?
Texas just looked, and I know that they played an inferior team in Florida last weekend, but they looked like a really well-schooled team. Sarkisian just has everything going for him. He's got 2 rocket arm quarterbacks that got a rushing attack. Texas really, as we talk about it now, Texas and Oregon can play for the whole thing. That's how they're strong about Texas. Yeah. Texas wins this game easy.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've argued that Oregon and Texas are the best teams in the country right now, and at this moment, I would still argue that. So I'm going to go with Texas as well. Clemson is on the road at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's not ranked anymore. They were ranked. They were undefeated just a couple weeks ago. Clemson is 7-2. They're ranked 20th. Pittsburgh is unranked at 7-2. The game is in Pittsburgh at Acrisure Stadium, the home of the Steelers. What do you have for this one, PJ? Does Clemson lose their third game, or does Pittsburgh lose their third game?
This is a really tough game to pick. Clemson's a 10-point favorite. If I was a gambling guy, I think I'd probably get in on that, but I don't think that's enough points. I think I like Clemson on the road here.
Yeah, Clemson, to me, I think they can still make things interesting. And keep in mind that if the ACC championship started today, Clemson would play SMU, not Miami. So I'm going to go with Clemson to get a victory here inside of this matchup with Pitt. If they don't, then Clemson is going to fall out of this thing, and Miami will have the opportunity to move up. Alabama's playing Mercer. I'm not even going to touch that one. So let's get to the next one here. Boston College at SMU. People forget that SMU in Dallas, Texas, is an ACC team. So this is an ACC game. Boston College just ran for over 300 yards on Syracuse. Boston College has proven that they can run the ball. They've proven that they can do some good things under Billy O'Brien. But SMU has proven that they are a tough out for anybody. What do you have for this one, PJ? 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Boston College at SMU.
Really good game to watch. SMU is an overwhelming favorite, almost 19.5 points. The gamblers must know something. I don't know if SMU covers, but I think they win the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with SMU in this one as well. SMU's only loss this season is to BYU, and BYU is undefeated. So, and that game was 18-15, where both teams struggled to score. So I'm gonna lean on SMU in this one to pull off the victory and in their first season in the ACC to continue to lead the ACC. I believe I told you to not think that they were going to be a slouch in the ACC, and that maybe you should be a little bit leery of the fact that SMU is not a team that was just going to fade into the background of the ACC in their first season. Next game that we have up here, PJ, LSU at Florida. What do you got?
Oh, jeez. Do I have to say something?
Yeah, you do.
I know LSU got whacked last week by Alabama, and there's talk down here that Brian Kelly's on his way out. I think if Brian Kelly loses this game, he's on his way out. Apparently Billy Napier's not on his way out. I don't know what to do here. I want to say LSU, but I'm not a fair weather fan. I got to stick with my Gators. Now, DJ Lagway plays, it's going to be a ball game.
Yeah.
But I can't figure that, so I'm going to have to go with Florida.
So PJ going with Florida. Keep in mind, LSU is already bowl eligible with a record of 6-3. But as I told you before, this is the SEC. If they lose their fourth game of the season and it's to Florida, there is a chance that Brian Kelly would be on the hot seat. I'm going to go with LSU to win this game. If LSU loses this game, I really think that Brian Kelly goes to the hot seat, which is sad to say, but hey, that is the SEC. 4 losses and a loss to Florida this season. That's going to cause a lot of clamoring not in your favor down in Baton Rouge. Missouri at South Carolina. Missouri was ranked in the top 10 this year. They're 23 right now. South Carolina, they've been having themselves some fun this season. They're ranked 21 right now. South Carolina this season has wins over Kentucky on the road, 31-6. They have a win at Oklahoma, 35-9. They beat a ranked Texas A&M, 44-20, and they beat a Vanderbilt team that beat Auburn and Alabama this year. They beat that team on the road, 28-7. So, what do you have for this one, PJ? We got a South Carolina team that, like I said, has gotten back into the public eye in a positive way. It's been a minute for South Carolina. They're 6-3 right now, but they're a different 6-3 than an LSU 6-3. High expectations for LSU. South Carolina, I don't think nationally a lot of high expectations. So Missouri at South Carolina, what do you got?
I like South Carolina in this game. This is the statement game for them, and I think Missouri's been overranked all year long. So it just won't surprise me if South Carolina wins it.
Couldn't agree with you more. And they call themselves USC. So to them, there's 2 USCs, but there's really only one, and it's not on the West Coast. I'm going to go with South Carolina as well in this matchup. And I agree with you, PJ, that Missouri's been ranked too high, and I think South Carolina is going to get the victory in this matchup. Missouri might fall out of the top 25 again after this game. They are 7-2. This would be their 3rd loss if the Tigers are to lose this game. Next game that I have up for us, PJ, Kansas at BYU. Is there any threat that Kansas can do anything against the 9-0 BYU team? Kansas right now is 2-4 in the Big 12. They're 3-6 overall. Can they play a spoiler, or will BYU in their second season in the Big 12 be undefeated at 10-0?
I think BYU wins this easy.
PJ going with BYU, and people forget BYU's in the Big 12, but they are, and they're leading it right now. Brigham Young is commanding the Big 12 as the Big 12 has become a Southeast, South Middle, and West Coast conference. I'm going to go with BYU in this matchup as well. And I'm going to give us just a couple more before we take a step aside and go to the NFL. Tennessee.
I have a game.
Okay, is it Tennessee at Georgia?
No, I have a game.
Go ahead.
It needs to be talked about because there's already talk about it.
Okay.
And this is Utah against Colorado. Now, Utah played a tough game last week about BYU, which just barely lost. And prime time is in the news down here because people are pushing him to take over the FSU job. Now, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not sure if Mike Norvell is looking over his shoulder. But I would be Mike Norvell looking over his shoulder, that's for sure. I don't think Colorado can win this game. I think Utah played a better schedule. Colorado's overranked. But the thing here is the prime time to possibly take over FSU.
Yeah.
I like Utah.
Yeah, Colorado, if the Big 12 championship was played today, it would be BYU against Colorado. Keep in mind, Utah just lost 22-21 against BYU, and BYU stays undefeated. And then as far as Colorado goes, when we take a look at their schedule, Colorado this season has only 2 losses to Kansas State and earlier this season at Nebraska. So Colorado has played one ranked team this year and they lost to them, which was Kansas State. They haven't played any other ranked teams. North Dakota State, Nebraska they lost, Colorado State, Baylor, UCF, Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech. Those are all wins, but none of those are against ranked teams. And you take what Utah just did, which was push BYU to the brink. So it makes you feel like Utah can do this thing, right? Because they took the best team in the Big 12 and they only lost by 1 point to them. So PJ's going with Utah. But where will I go? I'm going with prime time. I'm going with Colorado to win this game and defeat Utah. Utah overall 4-5. I agree with you. They played a better schedule, PJ, and they pushed BYU, but I got Colorado in this one. This team's been heating up, and I think that they're going to win this game and stay in that place to be the second team in the Big 12, which means they would play in the Big 12 championship against BYU. Next game that we have up here, PJ, is going to take us to a later game. And that later game, I'm looking through here it is. So the 7:30 p.m. Eastern time game on ABC and ESPN Plus. Tennessee at Georgia. What do you got?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one, too. Kirby Smart's going to have his team up. He always has his team up. I don't think he has as much talent this year as he does, but I still think he's got enough to win here. Cameron Beck is going to shine in this year.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia loses this game, they would have 3 losses. Tennessee loses the game, they have 2 losses. So PJ is going with Georgia to get the victory. I'm going to go with Tennessee to get the win, which would hand Georgia 3 losses, which now asks the committee, do you let in somebody from the MAC, the American Conference USA, one of those conferences, the Sun Belt, or do you sit here and say to yourself, no, we got to let in a 3-loss Georgia team? I'm going to go with Tennessee to win. I'm just going to put it to you like this. If Army goes undefeated this season, and keep in mind, they play that extra game against Navy. So if Army goes undefeated this season, I don't care who you put in from Boise State to this, that, whatever. You need to put in, at this point, in my mind, if Army goes undefeated and Boise State keeps doing what they're doing, you need to put Boise State and Army in the college football playoff, or else it would be a travesty. The last game that we're going to talk about here, PJ, Cal at Syracuse. Or pardon me, Syracuse at Cal. Syracuse is on the road here. Syracuse at Cal. This is an ACC game. It's an Atlantic Coast Conference game, even though it's going to be played on the Pacific Coast. Cal is going to be the home team in this game at 3 p.m. Eastern time on the CW. Syracuse is already bowl eligible. Cal could be bowl eligible after this game. People have been knocking Cal this season because they haven't had a great record, but they're 5-4. 1 game away from going to a bowl game. And keep in mind about this with the ACC. People talk about, the ACC only deserves to get 1 team in. The ACC has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 teams that are bowl eligible. And after this week, they have the opportunity. There's a bunch of teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that are on the precipice of being bowl eligible. So they have 17 teams in their conference, and they could have 13 or 14 teams that are going to a bowl game this season. The only teams that are not going to a bowl game, Stanford and Florida State at this point. Cal, NC State, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Virginia all have a shot at going to a bowl game. We know that Duke, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Louisville, Miami, Clemson, and SMU are bowl eligible. So Syracuse at Cal. Syracuse is 6-3. Cal is 5-4. What do you got, PJ?
I love your quarterback. I think this kid plays with a lot of poise, got a rocket arm, comes from a good program, and I think he's made a huge difference in Fran's first season over there. And I think you ride this kid.
So PJ going with Syracuse to win the game. And I am also going to go with my hometown of Syracuse, not because I'm a hometown homer, because in this game, let me put it to you like this. If the defense can get better for Syracuse, I trust Syracuse's offense to be able to burst open and score some more points in this game than Cal. That is the edge that I'm given. Respect to Justin Wilcox and the team over there at Cal for the Golden Bears. I'm going to give Syracuse the edge here, which would give Syracuse 7 wins on the season with 2 games to go. And all I have to say about some of those people that call themselves Syracuse fans, if you got a 7-win coach with 2 games to play, why don't you start being, God forbid, a little bit positive? PJ and I are going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we're going to hit in the last half hour here the NFL. And as we tackle the NFL with you, we'll take a look at how we did last week, and we'll make our picks for this week. On the screen is College Football Week 12. Coming up after this will be the NFL Week 10 recap and the NFL Week 11 picks. Right here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I thank you for hanging out with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora Monday through Friday all around the country and the world. Of course, you're with us on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. NFL.com. We're heading to our NFL, going to recap Week 10 and then take a look at Week 11. So for Week 10, for PJ and I, how we fared in our picks for the NFL go as follows. So PJ and I, in the first game, we went with Baltimore over Cincinnati. That was a nice game there, a lot of fun there. Jamar Chase on the losing side for Cincinnati, but got me 59 fantasy points with having, I think, 3 touchdowns and 264 receiving yards. So we both picked Baltimore, got that one correct. The game in Germany went Carolina's way. Carolina in overtime over the Giants, 20-17. PJ went Carolina. I went with the Giants, so PJ got that one right. The next game that we had here, New England over Chicago. PJ went with Chicago. I went with New England, so I got that one correct. And then we go to Buffalo and Kansas City. So, well, Buffalo and those 2 games is what I'm saying. So Buffalo beats Indianapolis 30-20. And now Anthony Richardson's got his job back after Joe Flacco has multiple turnovers in the game. Kansas City barely beats Denver 16-14, but we got those 2 right. So Buffalo wins, Kansas City wins. Then we look at the next portion here, which is Hotlanta. Hotlanta loses to New Orleans in a confusing game, 20-17. So PJ and I got that one wrong. And then we look at the San Francisco 49ers win over Tampa. Tampa in back-to-back weeks go up against the 2 teams that played for the last Super Bowl, Kansas City and San Fran. And without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin, they brought both of these teams, Kansas City and then San Francisco, to the brink of a loss. So shout out to Baker Mayfield, this defense, special teams, the offense, the coaching staff, because Tampa's playing without their 2 best wide receivers, and they took the 2 teams that went to the last Super Bowl to the end of the game and got within just a few points of them. So shout out to Tampa, who's doing a lot of work with not having as many guys out there. San Fran wins the game. PJ and I both got that one right. Pitt over the Commanders here. That was a game where was Zach Ertz, did he get a first down? Did he not get a first down? They said he didn't. Pitt wins by a point, 28-27. The Minnesota game against Jacksonville, what an ugly game. Minnesota wins the game 12-7 in Jacksonville. I picked Minnesota. PJ went with Jacksonville, so I got that one right. The Chargers, 27-17 over the Titans, so we got that one correct. And then in the Philadelphia game, they beat Dallas 34-6. Dallas playing without Dak Prescott, and even with Dak Prescott, the team struggled, so we got that one correct. The Jets lose to Arizona 31-6, so PJ and I got that one wrong. Arizona's been able to score a lot of points on certain teams this season. Detroit handles Houston 26-23 in a close game with 2 teams that I believe are playoff teams. And the Rams on Monday night fall to the Dolphins 23-15. So we get that one wrong, which means that PJ ends the week. Let's see here. PJ's 4-1, 4-2, 5-2, 5-3, 5-4, 6, 7-4, 7-5, 8-5, 8-6. So PJ ends the week 8-6. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I end the week 9-5. PJ ends the week 8-6. PJ, we're going to jump right into. Is there anything you want to say about Week 10, the games that we just saw in the NFL? Anything you want to say about Jacksonville before we get to Week 11?
What more can you say? I mean, Mac Jones did the best he could with limited time. I still think he's a quality quarterback. I know that they signed Beathard. To back up, the talk down here is that Lawrence will not play tomorrow, so you have to factor that into your games. There's a good chance that he will have shoulder surgery and miss the rest of the year. That's what they're saying down here. The defense looked like they could play all day, but with Mac Jones struggling, trying to find some continuity, the tank didn't tank. The tank needs a tank if the Jaguars are going to get ball control. Even Thomas didn't even get any. I don't even know if Thomas got any catches. If he did, it was minuscule. You know that we're talking here about the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they right now, have the worst record in the entire NFL at 2-8. There's a lot of teams that are 2-7 and 3-7. New York Giants are 2-8 also. The worst record in the NFL, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Jaguars have fallen, and so many games were close. So many games could have gone in their favor. So many opportunities to be had that they just didn't finish. Now they don't have Cam Robinson. They don't have Roy Robertson-Harris. They may not have Trevor Lawrence. They've lost Travis Etienne at certain times, got him back. Tank Bigsby's banged up right now. This Jacksonville Jaguars team is just in a really bad state. The Jaguars currently, let's get into week 11 for the NFL, and PJ and I are going to make our picks. PJ, tonight we're going to see Thursday Night Football. That Thursday Night Football game will have Washington at Philadelphia in an NFC East divisional matchup. What do you have for this one?
Washington, I think, was brought down to earth last week a little bit. They're still a very good team. I think Daniels has he's got everything in front of him, but they're not as good as Philadelphia, period.
Now, PJ going to go with Philly on Thursday Night Football. I am going to lean on the side of Washington, and I'm going to say Washington bounces back. You never want the officials to be a part of really the end of the game if they don't have to be, and they were a part of the end of that game against Pittsburgh. I'm going Washington. Green Bay at Chicago.
Chicago's really struggling with offense. I'm a little surprised. Apparently Caleb Williams is not doing what he's supposed to do. But Green Bay is. I like Green Bay's defense too. Green Bay.
Yeah, I got to go with Green Bay. I agree with you. Chicago has struggled offensively in this first season with Caleb Williams. He is a rookie, and I tell people, you got to give these guys time. But I'm going to go with the Packers. I think the Packers can put 30-plus in this game. Jacksonville, guess what? Good for Jacksonville. They're 2-8. They get to go on the road and play one of the best teams in the NFL that I think's got a really good shot of making the Super Bowl, Detroit. What do you got, PJ?
Folks, if you watched Detroit last weekend, you saw how a good team that can play poorly can still win the game. Jared Goff, as great as he is, had 5 interceptions. 5. 3 of them counted to him. 2 of them were tips. And that's not going to happen this week. Jacksonville is way, way overmatched here.
So you're going with Detroit?
Yeah.
PJ going with Detroit. I will also be going with Detroit in this matchup to win the game. Detroit just has too much going for them, and Jacksonville doesn't have much of anything right now that looks good. So I'm going with Detroit to handle this game. Minnesota at Tennessee.
Minnesota. I know Tennessee's playing at home, but I like Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota's got Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson is back. Aaron Jones is a little banged up, and God willing, he'll be okay and get back at it. But I'm going to have to go with Minnesota on the road. Strong team, playoff team. I've been saying that for weeks. I'm going to keep going with that. The Las Vegas Raiders going up against Miami in Miami. What do you got, PJ?
The Boomers alive and well, always.
Yes.
Miami.
Yeah, Miami to me, listen, they've had 3 starting quarterbacks with the Raiders this season. They have now gone to Desmond Ridder, who's a guy that I covered at Cincinnati in college with the Bearcats. I got to go with the Dolphins here. They're a better team when they have Tua. I just want Tua to stay healthy. So I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins to win this game and take over here. I think Miami's got a good shot of doing some good things right now. They're not out of it, folks. They are 3-6, but they're going to keep on pushing if they got Tua out there. Los Angeles Rams at the New England Patriots.
Drake May looking really good. He's looks like he's going to be the real deal up there. But I think LA's got a little bit too much for them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. You got Matt Stafford, you got Puka and Cooper Kupp. back and doing their thing. I got to go with the Rams in the game, but I agree with you. Some good things with Drake May, some hope. I had high hopes with him going into the draft, and then I was a little concerned at how long it takes for his passes to get down the field sometimes, but he's been doing some good things, and it's been going pretty well here early on for New England, right? You got to take baby steps, especially when you're a rookie, and he's done some good things. Cleveland at New Orleans, what do you got? Oh, and by the way, PJ, this is famous Jameis Winston's return to New Orleans for the first time since becoming a Cleveland Brown, and he is going to be the starting quarterback.
Jameis.
Wins.
What's up, Jameis? Crab man Jameis. Jameis, you're an idiot. New Orleans.
PJ going with New Orleans in this one. I got to go with New Orleans as well. New Orleans hasn't made a lot of sense, but Cleveland has made less sense. So I'm going to go with New Orleans here to win this game and move forward here. What'd you say?
Derek Carr is back, too.
That's right. Indianapolis Colts are back to Anthony Richardson. Go Gators. They're on the road at MetLife Stadium against the Jets. What do you got?
Oh, boy. I really hammered Anthony last big week, and it's justified, too. I mean, he came into this league as a prima donna. He didn't work hard enough. He takes a break during a game. Are you kidding me? Geez. If the grumpy lobster bowl captain was coaching that team, he'd be sailing the ship somewhere. No way. Indianapolis, I think Anthony will shine this week.
The lowest price ticket to this game is cheaper than a cheeseburger in New York City, $25.
$25.
So I got to go with Indianapolis in this one. The Jets just got too many problems. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. What do you got?
Oh boy, now this is a hell of a game right here. As much as I like Pittsburgh and I like the way that they played last week, I mean, how can? For what I read, Baltimore is going to introduce another big, strong running back this week to take the load off of Derek. And I can't think of his name, but anyway, I think it's a three-headed monster. I think that Baltimore runs the ball forever and wins the game easy.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell, who was on the team last year, there's an opportunity for him to step it up here. So he's back and ready to contribute after not being around for the last 10 months due to a knee injury. So you got Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, as well as Lamar Jackson. I'm going with Baltimore as well to win this game. Baltimore, a very strong team and somewhat flying under the radar because of Kansas City, and I'm sure that they're totally fine with that. Going Baltimore. Atlanta at Denver, PJ.
Well, you got a good quarterback who's been in the league for many years, and you got a young quarterback who is going to be in the league for many years, Bo Nix. Who do I like? What quarterback do I like better? I like Denver because they're in Denver. That's all. It's a pick 'em game, really.
Yeah, Denver almost beat Kansas City. Last year they almost beat them, and 2 weeks later they went back and beat them. So I'm going with Denver in this one. That was without Bo Nix. Denver's got a defense, and they got Bo Nix. I'm going with them. Atlanta struggled at times this year. Got to go with the Broncos. Seattle at San Francisco.
CMC is back. He did a lot of work last week. A little bit tired, but just because he's there, Seattle's playing well. They have a good team with Odino there, but I think that CMC carries through.
Yeah, CMC's out there doing his thing. Deebo Samuel's out there doing his thing. I got San Francisco to get a victory in this matchup at home against Seattle in the NFC West. Next one is one that Kansas City has won in the postseason, and Buffalo has typically won in the regular season in recent history. Kansas City at Buffalo, what do you got? These tickets, the lowest one, $230 to go to cold Buffalo this weekend. What do you got? Kansas City at Buffalo.
I'd like to know what the weather is.
I'll tell you right now, PJ. Not to interrupt here, but Buffalo's weather. Let's take a look at it. Let's look at Buffalo forecast for this Sunday. 56 degrees and it's supposed to be cloudy. The wind will be 12 miles an hour.
That's a day in the park for these guys. This is a pick 'em game also. 2 points either way. I'm going to stay with the home team, Buffalo.
I'm going to go with Buffalo in this matchup as well. I'm going to go Bills to win this game over Kansas City. I'm going to go with Buffalo to move forward here. They've been winning the regular season matchups between Kansas City and them. Kansas City's been getting the best of them in the playoffs. I'm going to go Buffalo. Sunday Night Football, Cincinnati at the Chargers. What do you got?
Oh, this would be a hell of a game here, too. Two great arm, strong quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, I think, can carry them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow as well. Sunday Night Football, primetime game. Tickets as low as $41, folks. So I'm going to... Right, and that's crazy, and that's it. That's in L.A. So, I mean...
You probably pay $41 for a parking pass in Los Angeles for a game.
You pay more to have preferred parking at Walt Disney World than you would pay to go to this game. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. And by the way, a cheeseburger in L.A., more expensive than $41. So Monday Night Football, Houston at Dallas. This is another opportunity at a game that we saw years ago. In 2002, when the Houston Texans became the most recent expansion team in the NFL, becoming the 32nd NFL franchise, the Houston Texans' first ever game in the NFL was against the Dallas Cowboys. They defeated them in their first game ever as a team. Now they're playing Dallas without Dak Prescott on Monday Night Football. What do you got, PJ?
Why do they keep putting Dallas on television? I don't want to watch Dallas on primetime.
Yeah.
And Cooper Rush, he's a dude, but who the hell cares about that? And who cares about Jerry Jones weeping again? All week long, I had to listen or had to read about what Jerry Jones was saying about everything instead about his own team. He's not going to change any coaches. He's not going to change this. He's not going to change that. Jerry should look right across the line of scrimmage and look at the next kid who's going to take over this lead in C.J. Stroud and wish that he had him. Houston.
Yeah, I'm going with Houston in this one. One of the quotes of the year, why is Dallas still on television? Said by Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call. The Giants, the Cardinals, the Bucks, and the Panthers are off. I am also going to pick Houston on Monday Night Football to get their victory over the Dallas Cowboys, just like they did in the expansion year of 2002. I want to make a note of this really quick while PJ is with us. We had two of our polls come in from last week. We had a ton of votes, so thank you for your voting. Where will Pete Alonso play in the 2025 Major League Baseball season? 20% of you said Pete Alonso will be a Yankee. 4% said he'll be an Astro. 22% said he'll be a Cub. 54% said he will stay with the Mets. Then I put out this voting. Where will Juan Soto play in the 2025 season? 27% said he'll stay a Yankee. 1% said he'll be a San Francisco Giant. 13% said he'd be a Dodger. 59% believe he'll be a Met. So, PJ, the majority of people that are voting say to me that Pete Alonso and Juan Soto will be New York Mets this upcoming season. Agree or disagree?
Well, I agree with Alonso, but there is some. I didn't have any Major League Baseball news this week to talk about, but there is a little caveat. Mr. Steinbrenner, the fourth or fifth or whatever the hell they got, met Juan Soto in San Francisco or Los Angeles, one of those teams, and talked to him about becoming a Yankee. I'm not sure where that fits into things here, but I think if Juan Soto didn't take his agent probably, it was probably a nice conversation. And Mr. Steinbrenner is saying, well, I'll give you 1% of the team to come and play for me, which is how much that's worth. $1 million, $20 million, $50 million. But, no, I think that Juan Soto stays with the Yankees. Pete Alonso, Go Gators, is a definite Met.
Yeah, coming from PJ, thinks Juan Soto's going to go through all of this free agency and remain a Yankee after spending one season there and playing in the World Series. And he believes that the Pete Alonso sweepstakes is going to stay with the Mets, despite the fact that he did not sign a long-term deal with the Mets going into this season. So we shall see. PJ, as always, I appreciate your time. I send you and MT my love, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right. Had a lot of fun.
All right, take care. Thanks. That coming from Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. We'll take one final step aside, and we'll be back to wrap up this edition of Wake Up Call right after these wonderful messages. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. Find GG Cards and Breaks right there for you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, with hockey, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, and more, including Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon cards, graded cards, packs, boxes, singles, rookie patch autos, also known as RPAs, numbered cards, potential one-of-ones, relic cards, autograph cards, rookie cards. GG Cards and Breaks has it all. And it's so much fun to go there and discover something cool for yourself or something to bring home for a loved one. It's the holiday season, so it's a good time to go out there and look for people as well. Head off to GG Cards and Breaks, support local, and support a great community place that, to me, is led by wonderful people, caring people, and really, really hardworking people, and those are the people I love to support. So thanks to Josh and Anthony and the entire team at GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call, I want to thank Papa Joe. Of course, I want to thank you all for being with us on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. You can also find us by going into our archives on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And of course, a big time thanks to our incredible partners, Brooklyn Pickle down in North Carolina at 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. That's 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Go out and visit them today. So I show them a lot of love and a lot of appreciation. Love that Brooklyn Pickle is down in North Carolina, because I love Brooklyn Pickle and I love the state of North Carolina. So a great marriage there, and happy to see that they're together. Big time thanks to our partners in Central and Upstate New York, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Servomation, Mother's Cupboard, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, GG Cards and Breaks, Fire Pit Barbecue and Saloon, Pizza Man, Great Lakes Honda City, Brian's Landing, Canine Campground, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time during Dolphin Time. You'll find the Lemoyne College Dolphins there with us, student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni telling their stories. You could find it all by going to youtube.com/wakeupcallDT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and of course find the Lemoyne playlist. You'll also find the Dolphins by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, and as always, Fins Up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats every single month with men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and esports throughout the year here inside of what we call the Bobcat Buzz. And you'll find all that by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find the BSC Syracuse playlist. You also find the Bobcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time during Bearcat Time. Tuesdays at 10 a.m. worldwide. You will have the opportunity to hear from the incredible Binghamton University Bearcats and to have that opportunity to hear from them. Moments with Marshall, with Gene Marshall, the athletics director of Binghamton University, and the Bearcat Break Room featuring student athletes, coaches, administration of Binghamton University telling their incredible stories. So you'll find all of this by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll also find the Bearcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, I want to thank Papa Joe once again, and I want to thank you. Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. Have a beautiful day. God bless.